It's 30 minutes after 7 o'clock here on 97.1 Wadsworth Community Radio. And in the studio with us here, we have Judge Steve McIlvaine from the Wadsworth Courts here. And we're going to be discussing something that's everyone should really should get educated here, because on issue 1, which will be coming up on the ballot here, and again, we just mentioned early voting is starting next week. So it's very important that people understand what this is about. So welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. Let me do my disclaimer up front.
Okay. Right.
Many of you maybe in the listening audience say, well, what's a judge doing talking about issues or candidates, or this is kind of unusual. And as you know, the judicial canons of ethics prohibit a judge from commenting or endorsing individual candidates or even supporting a specific issue, such as, publicly, school levies, library levies. We can't do that. But the exception is we are encouraged to educate people on the laws. The Supreme Court recently came out and said, well, state issue 1 is a constitutional amendment changing the laws. We need to educate people. So that's why I'm allowed to be here, and I thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you about this issue today.
And issue 1, it's a little bit deceiving as we've been talking about it. It is a constitutional amendment to address opiate addiction and how low-level felonies for that people would not have to go to jail, but there's a whole lot more to that.
There is more to it. And to be fair, I think the overriding concept I don't disagree with. And to be fair to those proponents, they call this the Neighborhood Safety Drug Treatment and Rehabilitation Amendment. And their premise is that opiate addiction is a serious problem, and it's a society problem. But those that are possessing it on low-level felonies should not be sent to state prison. Okay, that's the concept of the amendment, and I don't disagree with that. But most of the judges I know, we don't send people to jail for possessions. We prefer treatment, and that's what they want to do in this bill, mandate treatment. But the problem is when you peel back the layers of this amendment, it could have catastrophic effects on Ohio. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk about, the actual problems that this would create for Ohio citizens.
And let's talk about that, because we know that from what we understand, it could cause more overdoses, potentially more deaths, and there could be absolutely no accountability whatsoever.
Yes, I don't think that was the intent, but I think that could be the consequence. Now, for people, when you go to the ballot or if you get an absentee, the language of State Issue 1 actually says to reduce penalties for crimes of obtaining, possessing, and using illegal drugs. So that's what the law is. And in essence, it says any 4th and 5th degree felony possession charges will no longer be felonies. They will be called misdemeanors. Okay. Therefore, they're going to take it out of common pleas and put it in my courts, municipal courts. That and alone, okay. If that's what the people want, I got no problem with that. But they went a step further and it said, and while they're treated as a misdemeanor, they specifically cannot be sent to jail unless it's their 3rd offense within a 24-hour period, or 24-month period. So in a 24-month period, you can't send them to jail. First blush, and say, well, what can I do with them? I want to send them to treatment. And why I think they didn't mean this, because I was reading an article about one of the proponents. There's a guy named Stephen Johnson Grove, who was a criminal justice reform advocate. And we're talking about this carrot stick. Normally in the law, if I put someone on probation, it's a carrot stick. I say, okay, I'm going to give you jail, but I'm going to suspend the jail. That's the stick. But I want you to do these things. I want you to do community service. I want you to do restitution. Or in this case, I want you to go get treatment, okay? And if you do those things, the carrot, I won't hit you with a stick. I won't send you to jail. Or the proponents say that, we say, by this bill takes away the stick. And they're saying, no, it doesn't take away the stick. They're saying all we're doing is taking away the sledgehammer, which is prison. The judges have other kinds of tools, such as probation. Well, obviously they don't understand probation, because what's going to happen if I get someone with possession and they come to my court and I'm going to say, okay, they're found guilty or they plead to it. I say, okay, I want you to go get treatment and make restitution to the victim. Okay, and they say, okay, and they go off, and then maybe a couple months, but say a month later, they come back in. I say, Mr. Smith, you didn't go to treatment, or you started treatment and left it. Yeah, that's right, Judge. I'm sorry. You didn't pay restitution. No, I didn't pay restitution. You didn't pay your fines and costs. No, I didn't. And what can I do? I can say, have a nice day. Seriously, there's nothing I can't put them in jail. Now you think, okay, is that bad? Well, here's what you also have to remember. These fourth and fifth misdemeanors as they affect now, that could include someone that has 49 units. They're caught possessing 49 unit doses of heroin, 49 unit doses of cocaine, 49 unit doses of LSD, or anything less than 20 grams of fentanyl. That's a large amount. Okay, now they're felonies. If this passes, they will be misdemeanors that I can't send you to jail. That's not, I don't think that's the intent. I think these people actually thought, I just don't want them going to state prison. Because another part of this bill said, okay, the state then, of all the money they save by not incarcerating these people in state prisons, the state then has to take that savings and actually they divide it 70% and 30% to, rehab facilities and Department of Health and juvenile court probation. So, I mean, the concept is they're trying to give them money. And they're going to say it's going to be $100 million, that the savings. I don't know. I just got a number from the Supreme Court of Ohio saying, and I'm rounding these figures off, of the approximate 50,000 people in prison right now, only 2,700 of them are in there because of fourth or fifth degree felonies, and not all of those are because of drug possessions. So we're not talking large numbers because judges don't send these people to prison now. Okay? For example, Judge Collier has that drug court. Okay, that's gotten a lot of success. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have CBCF, which is community-based correction facilities that the common police send people to. Those will not be able to be used. By this law passes, number one is common police wouldn't have these, so they have no one to put in the drug courts. I wouldn't be able to do a drug court because I can't send them to jail if they violate anything. CBCFs, you can't send them to these treatment facilities because that's incarceration, because they're not free to leave that facility. So it's considered a jail. Although it's not a jail, it's a lockdown secure facility. So you can't send them there. So this law says, it says, well, you're not going to be able to use those. It doesn't give us any alternatives. It doesn't give us any alternatives for treatment. And I think that's a problem.
If you can't, can you reimpose a sentence? Let's say if they do not go to if you can't sentence them for a fourth and fifth degree felony and or they haven't fulfilled their sentence, can you reimpose or anything like that?
No. Once I have someone in front of me and I impose a sentence, that's their sentence. But what else? Okay, so if they come back and they say, I didn't do treatment. I say, okay, well, how about, would you mind doing some home arrest? Sure, I'll do home arrest. They don't do that. Come back and I said, you didn't do your home arrest. They said, I know, Judge. How about what can I do? I mean, actually, when you look at this as a practical matter, I'm going to have a lot more cases, which is fine. I don't mind. We talked about that before. I don't mind having more cases, but what am I going to do with them? My probation is going to say, Judge, why put these people on probation? Because there's nothing we can do.
Why even have them come to your court if there's nothing you can do?
I talked with Chief Reinke about this. We just did a TV show, by the way. And his concern is, his main concern was my officer is going to be frustrated. We deal with these people all the time, the same people, and they're going to know. And I'm going to say, I caught you with all this merit. They're going to look and say, they're going to laugh at the officer's face, and the officer's going to know there's no darn thing I or the courts can do. It's going to be frustrating. He says they're going to do their jobs. They'll still try to get it off the streets and arrest them, but they're going to be frustrated. He was really concerned about the 25% reduction. This bill also says that any inmate other than a murder, rape, or child molestation, anybody in state prison now can get 25% of their sentence reduced by the Ohio Department of Corrections if they participate in a program that would be educational, some work benefit, Again, the wording is important. It says participate. Doesn't say complete. Doesn't say pass. It just says participate. Someone's in prison. You're sitting there. What do you got to do? I'm going to go for an hour and sit in this class. I'll just every once in a while say something. I don't have to get anything out of it. And I can get 25% of my sentence reduced. Now, as a judge, I say, this is not the judge who sentenced you reducing it. the judge had sentenced you there. These are all common pleas because I don't send anyone to prison, okay? Common pleas judge, before they send someone, they've got victim impact statements. They have their probation department do a background check. They have extensive, information that even caused them to send them to jail. Now someone else is going to cut it by a fourth because they participated in a program.
And again, they're a captive audience there in prison. Why wouldn't they go participate?
And again, since this is a constitutional amendment, you can't, if this passes, you cannot change a single word unless you have another constitutional amendment. So you can't, so if the intent was not participate, but maybe successfully complete a program, that's not the words. Or, if you want to change a word from shall or may, you can't do that. In this case, you might say, well, we didn't mean you can't send them to jail. We meant you can't send them to state prison. You can send them to local jail, but you can't change that without a constitutional amendment. Right. That's what's wrong with it. This has no business being a constitutional amendment.
That's what I was going to say. It seems like it belongs somewhere else.
Legislature. The legislation should be a legislative bill, because that way the legislature would be able to vent these things. Because what happens in many bills, as a judge, I'm in the Ohio Judicial Conference. We review bills for the state legislators all the time, proposed bills. And they ask us, is this constitutional? Is this wording? And we review them and give them input, and then they go and do what they want to do. But even then, bills can need tweaked. They need a word here, change here to modify. We have correction bills all the time. You can't do that with a constitutional amendment. So that's what kind of. Another interesting point, the group that is proposing this, they've gotten a similar bill passed in California and Oklahoma. And both of those were as a state initiative. They were not constitutional amendments. So that's kind of the concern. I don't know how much time we have.
No, we're good. Okay. No, we're good. Keep going.
Judge, do you think judges have to try to walk a line between giving jail time for folks like this and also calling for treatment? It seems like that's I don't think you want to send everybody to jail, but you also don't want to, maybe have people who need help get the help they need.
Most of the judges I know, and again, I'll talk about some of the bigger cities. I have a lot of friends in Cleveland, the judges in Cleveland. They say they get people from all the time. If they don't have them in jail right now, they're not going to live another week. They're going to die, and they know that because these are. So what they do oftentimes is put them in jail for maybe 20 days, 30 days, so they get them clean. Once they get them clean, then some of these have Vivitrol programs. They get their first shot in jail, and then they get a head start. Okay, you got to get them clean. No one sends these people to jail or prison because they want to. Everyone wants to do treatment. But in this, by tying our hands, we can't even order treatment. Well, I can order treatment, but if they don't go, if they walk away, there's nothing I can do. And that's just, I don't think that's what they wanted.
And so they have to wait until there are 3 times within that 2-year period, and then you have power
So
again.
what's going to happen? And now some feel that there's been the argument that drug dealers in states around us are going to say, whoa, let's go to Ohio because I know I'll carry just 19 grams of fentanyl or 49 units of this, and that's all. And if I get caught, there's no jail. It's a misdemeanor. That's nothing. And once I get my second one, I just go back home and wait 24 months and then come back. So there's a concern that we're going to have an influx of more crime coming in. There are going to be people that says, I know they can't do anything to me, so what's the big deal? I don't have to go to treatment. I mean, it's got some effects that I don't think people intended, and that's my concern. This is just bad law. It's bad and it's not going to help the addicts. It's not going to help those who have opiate addictions who seriously need help. I mean, they don't need to go to jail.
It doesn't even seem like we need this constitutional amendment at all, based on what you're saying.
This one, no.
It already operates as...
If there's 50,000 people in jail and only 2,700 are for fourth and fifth, obviously the common police judges aren't sending these people to prison.
The numbers don't support any of this.
No.
So that leads to the interesting question of who's behind this.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it off air. Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook. It's his wife's foundation, and one of the other one is his co-founder for Facebook is pushing it, and some billionaire George Soros That's who's funding a lot of this. In fact, they spent like a little over $4 million to get it on the ballot, and 99.5% of that came from money outside Ohio. So this isn't like it isn't a grassroots Ohio initiative to get this on. So I mean, I'm surprised I haven't seen that. We were told they have $24 million war chest to start advertising for this. So I don't know what the people are going to see, and I'm sure it's going to say, we want treatment, no jail, and that's fine. I mean, I agree with that, but that's not what this constitutional amendment really does.
Right, and
And to that, I would say, why don't you give that money to places to get more people into treatment instead of the advertisements about the issue?
Sure.
Well, and the underlying cause here is we realize more recently, and again, that's why Judge Collier, Judge Kimbler's court are in existence, and a lot of the Wadsworth Drug Coalition and everything. More recently, being not 50 years ago, with the opioid addiction, with just people that are having surgery that are getting hooked. So the overall intent was, do you really want to send grandma to jail because she had her hip replaced and is now addicted to the medicine? No one's ever going to say yes. And so some intent is along that line, but after that initial thought, this appears to really go way out in the weeds.
Yes, and I think it's just bad law. And if it could have horrible consequences, not only to the rest for the safety of the people, but also those addicted. It's not going to help them, because if these people could actually go on their own to get treatment, they would. They just need help. I mean, how many times you hear that? Well, I went to rehab 3 or 4 times. These people want to get better. They don't want to be an addict. But if I can't force them to at least stay in the program with a threat of jail, they're going to walk away. It's too easy to walk away. There's no consequences for walking away. Then we have to do it again. So, I mean, it's really not helping those that have the addiction. It's not going to help them get better.
This is a state issue, so not people here in people here in Wadsworth, but all across the state of Ohio are going to be voting.
State of Ohio,
right?
Issue 1, state of Ohio, statewide, and that's why it's kind of tough, because those that are trying to get it out, we don't have any money to advertise statewide. We're trying to do our grassroots. That's why the Supreme Court, in fact, the Supreme Justice Maureen O'Connor has urged local judges to get out and make this known. It's because we have to do it grassroots, because we have no money to spend. Now hopefully they'll get some people to help. But we can't match them dollar for dollar.
And again, this is 97.1 Wadsworth Community Radio. We're speaking with Judge Steve McIlvaine here about Issue 1. Judge, talk real quick here before you have to go about, is this a simple yes or no vote? This isn't one of the convoluted vote yes for no or no for yes,
No,
correct?
this is straightforward. Like I said, the proposal is going to be, the language I said is to reduce criminal penalties for possession. If you want to reduce it, vote yes. If you're opposed to it, vote no. I would urge everyone to vote no, because this is just bad law. It should not be a constitutional amendment, and the consequences far reach what I think they're intending to do. So I would urge people no on State Issue 1, because it doesn't do what they want it to do.
Judge, as always, good seeing you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
That's right, and maybe we'll see you Friday night.
Yeah.
Maybe.
A little football.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
He always stares at me through the glass.
All right. Well, Judge, thanks again for coming in and educating us.
Thank you for
right.
this helpful information. Hopefully more judges across the state are able to kind of share the same thing that you are, so that we don't get ourselves into any more issues.
I agree. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It's 50 minutes after 7 o'clock on 97.1 Wadsworth Community Radio.